Hello everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics. This is going to be my review of Godzilla vs. Kong. For those of you who haven't already seen the movie, I'll be spoiler-free in the first part of this review, and then towards the back end I'll get into spoilers. I'll let you know beforehand so you won't get spoiled by anything. So, I've been a fan of the previous Monster verse movies. And for me, they've progressively become better with each movie. The 2014 Godzilla was pretty mediocre. I thought I really didn't enjoy it all that much. I thought it was a little dull, and the Mutos, or whatever they were called, I didn't think were very good monsters for Godzilla to fight. Skull Island was significantly better. I actually quite enjoyed that movie. The way they kind of set it up in the Vietnam era, and then the general, played by Samuel Jackson, how he was kind of frustrated by how the war ended, and he's kind of looking to take that out on Kong. He's got this kind of Ahab thing going with Kong. I thought that was really good. The Skull Island is one of the, in fact, it's probably really the only movie in this whole series where I think the human characters actually factored into the movie in a good way. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters was, I think, better. I quite enjoyed the movie. It did have its flaws, but I enjoyed it for what it is. It was good at doing what it was supposed to do. And then this movie, Godzilla vs. Kong, again, is, I think, just a little bit better. They've each gotten progressively just a bit better. And I did enjoy this movie. Overall, I did quite like it. Now, the movie starts with Kong, and we discover that Kong is actually in, I guess Monarch is keeping him. There's really not much mention of Monarch in this thing. They're like suddenly mysteriously kind of gone, but I assume this is them because who else would build this facility? But Kong is in this kind of enclosure, and they're monitoring him or studying him, and I think they've got him in here because he's supposed to be, they need him in here because if he's out of there, then Godzilla will sense him and want to come fight him. And he's being studied by this doctor, played by Rebecca Hall, or Rebecca Hill. Is that it? Yeah. Uh, and she's kind of like this Jane Goodall type who's studying Kong. And she has adopted this little girl named Jai. And Jai is a member of the tribe that lived on Skull Island. And I guess somewhere between Skull Island and this movie, her people died, and so she's the last one, and she's been adopted by this scientist. Now, Godzilla attacks this facility in Florida that's run by this corporation called Apex Cybernetics. And they explain to us that since the last movie, since King of the Monsters, things have been relatively peaceful because Godzilla's the alpha creature, and so all the others obey him, and basically they all behave. And this is the first time since King of the Monsters that Godzilla's attacked anybody, so the whole world's kind of like, whoa, what does this mean? And everybody's freaking out. And then we meet Dr. Lind, who is played by Alexander Skarsgård. And he's this guy, he has studied the whole Hollow Earth thing, and he's written a book about it. And he and his brother actually tried to go there, but there was an accident and the brother was killed. And he is approached by this guy named Simmons, and Simmons is the guy who runs Apex Cybernetics, and they want to get to the Hollow Earth because they believe, I think there's like a power source down there they want to get, or something like that, I don't remember. And they've got these special craft made to go there, but they don't know how to get there, and so they go to Lind, and Lind isn't sure how to do it, but he thinks if they could get they could get one of the Titans to lead them there. And he knows the doctor, Rebecca Hill's character, and he says, let's get Kong out of off of Skull Island and get him to lead us to the Hollow Earth. And first she's reluctant, but then she agrees to it. And then there's another plot line going with Millie Bobby Brown's character, Maddie, and after Kong starts attacking places, she's like, okay, well, something's wrong, something's causing him to do this, and she's determined to get to the bottom of it somehow. And so she and this other guy played by what's his name, Julian Dennison, I think his name. It's the kid from Hunt for the Wilder People and Deadpool 2, and they meet up with this guy who runs an online sort of conspiracy blog about the Titans named Bernie, and then they go to investigate Apex. So you have these kind of three different plot lines going. You've got Rebecca Hill and Dr. Lynn with the kid, and they're with Kong. Then you got Millie Bobby Brown and the other two that are with her trying to investigate Apex, and then you've got the guy that runs Apex, and they've obviously got their own agenda that's going on. So Millie Bobby Brown and her friends, they go to Apex, and they discover this lower level where they've got these cargo containers, and they get investigate one of the cargo containers. They get stuck in it, and then the company has this underground kind of magnetic rail system that can take things all over the world, and so they get shipped off in this cargo container to Hong Kong. Now, after they get Kong off of Skull Island, they've got him on a ship, and they're taking him to where they think they can access the Hollow Earth. And this is the stuff we've seen in the commercials where Godzilla arrives, and then he and Kong, they get into a fight on that aircraft carrier, and they're punching each other and all that. And then after Godzilla's attack, they decide, we can't take Kong this way because Godzilla's going to keep attacking. So then they decide to airlift him. So they sedate him and they get him in this big net, and then they airlift him with helicopters and carry him there. And the whole point of the thing is that we need him to guide us to the Hollow Earth, but then they take him to Antarctica. And again, I guess this is Monarch, I don't know, but there's this big facility there at an entrance into this big cave into the ground. So it's like, well, you know where the entrance to the Hollow Earth is, so why do you need King Kong? Why do you even need him along? This plot doesn't really stand up to a great deal of scrutiny. It's much better if you just kind of go along for the ride and you roll with it. Now, one of the things that really surprised me about this movie is that it's how much Kong is really the main protagonist in this movie. Despite the fact that Godzilla has top billing, this is a King Kong movie with Godzilla guest starring. And it surprises me also how much they kind of anthropomorphize the creatures, especially Kong. Kong's almost like a person. And as much as I was surprised by how much time Kong spends on screen, I was also kind of surprised by how little time Godzilla spends on screen. Aside from that fight they have on the ships there early in the movie, that's really all Godzilla does until the third act of the film. The rest of the time, you kind of see shots of him, but he doesn't really do much of anything. Overall, I would say this was a quite enjoyable film. I did like it. Again, the plots, a lot of it, it kind of doesn't entirely make sense. But, what are you watching this movie for? Are you watching it for some clever, intricate plot? No, we're watching it because we want to see a giant monkey punch a giant lizard. And we want it now, damn it. And the film certainly gives you that. It definitely delivers in terms of action and in terms of big monsters fighting each other. I also thought that this film, in terms of how the action is portrayed, is definitely the best. Unlike King of the Monsters, where a lot of the times the monsters are obscured, or they would keep cutting away from the monsters and stuff like that. This movie does a much better job of sort of highlighting the monsters and letting them fight. And I think the action overall, the director, Andrew Wingard, I think his name is, he did a really good job. He did a very good job. This is an enjoyable, really fun popcorn movie. Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start getting into kind of spoilery stuff. I think all the stuff I've said before is pretty much, it's all stuff that's in the trailers. So I'm going to get into some more spoilery stuff now. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then you can go ahead and dip out now. So eventually they do get into the Hollow Earth, but this is where it gets kind of confusing because it seems to be that it was the kingdom ruled by King Kong's people, by this species of giant apes. But again, it questions how smart are these creatures, because he gets down there and then he finds this place, and then there are like doors, and they're like King Kong sized doors. They're even big for Kong. These big stone doors are enormous. And he opens it up, and opens into this big chamber, and there's a throne, a big stone throne, again, like Kong-sized throne. So did Kong and his people make these things? And if they didn't, who did? I mean, was it people? I mean, how could people have possibly made those doors and set those doors up? I just don't see how that's possible. And then, of course, there's, if you've seen it in the commercials, there's that kind of axe, kind of battle axe, which is made from one of the spines of one of King Kong's, or excuse me, from one of, it's made from one of the spines of Godzilla's species. And it's wild because Kong is basically on, he gets a hero's journey. He's the heir to this lost kingdom. He even gets this special ancestral weapon with magic powers. When he finds the axe, it's embedded in the skull of, I guess, of one of Godzilla's people, and he pulls the axe out of the skull. At the time, I thought it's almost like he's pulling the sword from the stone in Excalibur. Oh, and also I forgot. Yeah, so he does fight those war bats, these big kind of flying snake creatures. There's really not much to that. He's traveling through the Hollow Earth, and they do attack him at one point. And then the people in these hovercraft, they're following him. It's the Rebecca Hill character and the Skarsgård and the little girl, and then some people who work for Apex who are along because, again, they're looking for this power source or whatever it is they're after. And they shoot some missiles and help him defeat the war bats. But while all that's going on down in the Earth, Millie Bobby Brown's character, her and the other two, they're in this cargo container being sent to Hong Kong. And so they get to the Apex Cybernetics facility in Hong Kong. And then they get out and they explore the place, which seems to have no security in it at all. And they find this enormous chamber, and that's when, of course, the big reveal comes. Apex Cybernetics has built Mechagodzilla. And they release this skull crawler, because they've got captive skull crawlers, I guess, and they release one, and Mechagodzilla fights it and kills it very easily. And we learn how they're controlling the robot. So they've got one of the skulls from Ghidorah. If you'll remember back in King of the Monsters, Ghidorah has one of his heads torn off or severed, and I guess that's the skull they have. And they've got a human who's sitting inside the skull, and he's like the pilot of the thing. And somehow he's plugged into the skull, and then the skull is somehow plugged into the robot, and he's guiding the robot that way. I mean, which you would think they would need the brain, not the skull. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, they've built Mechagodzilla because they want to kill the Titans, particularly Godzilla, and make humans, basically put humans on top again, so that humans will be in charge of the world again and not living in this world where they're sort of subjects to these Titans. And that's what's been setting Godzilla off. That's why he attacked their facility earlier in the movie. To do the test with the Skullcrawler, they activated the thing, and that's what drew Godzilla there. But then when the test is done, I guess they shut it off again. So when Godzilla gets to Hong Kong, he then uses his atomic breath to burn down through miles of earth and stone into the hollow earth, which is underneath, because he senses Kong there somehow. I mean, how he can sense Kong through all that solid rock, I don't know. But anyway, he burns this big hole all the way down to the hollow earth, and then Kong comes back out through the hole, and then they have their big showdown, and they fight, and Kong has that axe, and he's able to actually get the better of Godzilla for a while, because he can use the axe to block Godzilla's breath, which again seems like an oddly human behavior for him to display, but whatever. And it can absorb the atomic breath, and it kind of charges the axe up, so it has more power, and then he clubs Godzilla over the head and KOs Godzilla. But then a little later, Godzilla wakes up again, and then they fight a third time. And this time, Godzilla defeats Kong pretty thoroughly. I mean, he gets to the point where he's got Kong down on the ground, and he puts his foot on Kong's chest and roars in his face. And Kong tries to get back up and fight, but he just can't do it. He's just too beaten down. And then after Kong is defeated, Apex activates Mechagodzilla. But then when they activate it, something goes wrong. Again, it's not really clear, but something goes wrong, and the human pilot, the human operator is killed, and then somehow Ghidorah's consciousness or spirit or whatever, I don't know, somehow Ghidorah takes control of the robot. So now it's Ghidorah in a robot body. And then he attacks Godzilla and just beats the crap out of him. He mops the floor with Godzilla, and it gets to the point where he's killing him. And then the humans, they realize they need to get Kong back into the fight, but Kong is dying. The little girl can feel his heartbeat, and it's slowing, so they realize they got to get his heart going again. And they come up with the idea, they've got that hovercraft that's got the element that Apex wanted in it, a sample of it, and so they come up with the idea of using the element to get Kong's heart going again. So they land the hovercraft on his chest, and then they detonate the element or whatever it is, and that gets Kong's heart going again. So they get Kong awakened. At that point, Mechagodzilla's about to finish Godzilla off, and then Kong jumps in to help, and then they fight Mechagodzilla together, and they wind up defeating Mechagodzilla. And in the wake of it all, they kind of face off again, but they're both pretty spent at this point. They've both been through the grinder. It kind of ends that way with Kong, the ruler of the hollow earth, while Godzilla gets to rule up on the surface. And like I say, the movie does a pretty good job of handling the rivalry between them. They both are treated well by the story. They both get victories, but they also they face defeats as well. So I think the movie does a good job of paying respect to both characters. It's a fun popcorn movie. It's good fun if you're willing to just accept the movie for what it is and go along for the ride, and don't expect more than that from it. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments, and if you would, please like this video, and while you're at it, please sub to the channel and hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.